Yo, welcome back. We got another news on football today. And it's not the one that I throw or we throw as an American, but it's the one that the rest of the world play with the feet. Yeah, I'm talking about soccer, aka, yup. And it's about why China can't get it. It's not me. Let's get to it.
China will win the World Cup by 2050. That is
What? Go back. That statement is sorry. What's going on?
China will win the World Cup by 2050.
2015. If I'm not wrong, it's 2025. Where was China in the last two World Cup? I don't even. Is
That
it what
is
they
what
say?
President Xi Jinping famously
going
declared
on?
in a memo published by the Chinese Football Association on April the 11th, 2016. China will host the World Cup. China will build 70,000 football pitches nationwide. China will build 50,000 football playing schools by 2025. Those were the other things declared in that famous memo by President Xi. You see, President Xi's ground
The same reason why China failed at football is the same reason why. Well, I would say why us American fail at soccer. But I would like to say that at least we still have a face in World Cup. I haven't seen China in World Cup for a long time.
plan
might not
envisioned
be
China
good, but
becoming
we're
a
there.
soccer superpower by mid-century.
Well, we
he made
have to be
football
there
a
and
national
host
priority
here,
as
so-
he looked to shake off
You have no
China's
choice.
patchy results on and off
Oh
the
my
pitch
God,
in
we're
recent
terrible.
decades.
I
The
hope we're
vision
ready
spurred
next
one of the
year.
wildest spending sprees in recent football history, with very expensive player transfers and very expensive club acquisitions off the pitch too. However, shortly after, in one of the most dramatic political U-turns ever, things started crashing down, causing national turmoil in China, and some of those effects being felt here in Europe
Wait,
and
what?
causing national turmoil.
China dreams of becoming a football superpower lies in tatters. So they can't buy a. They pretty much can't make a big club that could invite enough big of a player to be there. I remember there's a Brazilian player that went there. I forgot his name. There's a few Brazilian player that go to China, but they not like. They not originally came from like Premier League. They more like Brazilian league going to China.
In China, and some of those effects being felt here in Europe and the UK today. I'm Jordan, and I'm on a mission to make passionate sports fans like you just 1% more informed. Today is a cautionary tale about sports and politics, wrapped in a beautiful long play wrapper, full of big spending and football business. So without further ado, we're going to tell the story of China trying to buy football. And we're going to start with all those players that famously went to go and play in China in those famous few years. And we're going to start with him, and him.
Oh yeah, Oscar.
Yes, Oscar Hulk and years football. And we're going to start with all those players
Was I right?
famously went to go and play in China in those famous few years. And we're going to start
I
with
said
him
all Brazilian, right? Yup. Brazilian.
and
Hulk. Is that Brazilian? I feel like he's Brazilian.
yes,
Yup, that's also Brazilian.
Oscar Hulk and Ramirez were just three of the many transfers that happened to China at that time. They joined Shanghai SIPG, Shanghai again, and Jiangsu Suning respectively. On top of that though were several other players, including Jackson Martinez, Axel Witsel, Cedric Bakambu, Yannick Carrasco,
Who?
Alexandra Pato, Stefan Ambia, Marouane Fellaini, Paulinho, Alex Teixeira, Ezekiel Lavezzi, Jovinho, Demba Ba, and Marco Arnautovic. All of them left their clubs and went to go and apply their trade in China. It was a
Alright, even in the alright, look. They call MLS League a burger leagues, right? Alright, hands up, can't even say shit. Check this out. Beckham. Did Zidane came here and play? I had no idea when he retired. We got Beckham, we got Rooney, Lampard went here. Fuck, Messi's here. You know what I mean? You talking about like we just went through a list of player and my reaction because like even in their prime, in their team, they are not the first pick. Like, name one of those player given their max prime, like on their top prime right now, and given that, and you have the other side is Messi 5 years ago, or like Messi 2 years ago at World Cup. Which one will you choose? I bet 9 out of 10 people would still take Messi. So the fact that the league able to get that kind of player, you know what I mean? It changes things. The list of the player you name is good, but is probably good in like, you know what I mean? In their prime, they're probably good in like Brazilian League, MLS League. But it's not like Premier League. It's not like they won the UCL. It's not like they've been in Spain. So I don't know, man. There's different
wild influx of talent, and there were two main attractions for them doing so. The first is being a part of this story. President Xi's plan was a big one, and it was exciting at the time. The second, of course, was the money. Those transfer fees were large, but the wages were crazy in some cases too. One person I didn't name in that list was Carlos Tevez. He went to play in China too and signed for Shanghai Shenhua in 2016. Despite only being there for 7 months, he was reportedly paid £615,000 a week for doing so. If you've been
That's $1 million, almost $1 million a week. It's too much money.
You know, I've spoken about Carlos Tevez's wages before. That man knows how to get to a bag. But that was just the money spent in China. That's not a bag, bro. President Xi's vision inspired a lot of money to be spent outside of China too.
He got himself a lot of you watching are
supporting teams who are feeling the effects of this right now. This man is Wang Jianlin, a Chinese billionaire. He kicked things off by buying a 20% stake in Atletico Madrid for 45 million euros in 2015. He made his investment through the Wanda Group, a massive Chinese company. And some of you may know, Atletico's stadium became the Wanda Metropolitano a few years later. Not long after, a Chinese consortium, CMC, paid 400 million euros for a 13% stake in City Football Group, Manchester City's parent company. Yes, the City Football Group, led by the Abu Dhabi state, were minority controlled by China too in its initial stages. In Italy, electronics retailer Sunning Holdings paid 270 million euros for a controlling stake in Inter Milan. We're going to get back to them later. But just across the road, also in Milan, the biggest deal came from AC Milan. Silvio Berlusconi sold his stake in AC Milan to a Chinese investment company for 740 million euros. To date, that is the biggest Chinese investment in European football, but just showed you the influx of money in European football was crazy at the time. Here in the UK, Aston Villa, Wolves, Reading, and West Brom all saw investment.
That is so crazy, real. I hear these numbers and it's crazy. Upward almost to $1 billion. But check it out. And the Cowboy Dallas is almost $8 billion worth. Is it 8 or 6? I'm not sure, but they like, imagine that, bro. Like, that is crazy, but because like in the scheme of like knowing, I'm pretty sure like Inter Milan is more well known around the world versus like the Dallas Texas Cowboy. But you know what I mean, in the sense of like value term wise, it's just like, oh my god.
Chinese companies. Remember President Xi's famous memo? It was published in April of 2016. By mid-2017, 20 European clubs had seen Chinese investment. Reuters tallied that Chinese investment in European football had surpassed $3 billion in value.
So it does increase.
Wouldn't it be nice if work was just smooth?
The Chinese exposure to European football was fast and intentional, and the footprint was starting to take shape. Before we continue, just a word from me. My platform has grown massively in the past few weeks. Thank you to anyone who has liked, watched, or commented on any video that I've ever made. Some of the messages that you guys send me are so humbling.
I'm glad I came across of it.
I really appreciate it when you do that, but it always surprises me how many people aren't subscribed. If you're one of those people who are watching but aren't subscribed,
make sure to like it.
It means the world to me when you do that. Now, I'm going to get back to this story because, amazing. In late 2017, Chinese authorities pumped the brakes on what they deemed to be an overheated, risky football investment bubble. This is despite the rhetoric President Xi was giving not that long before. In fact, President Xi proclaimed to be a big fan of football. In 2015, he visited the UK and took a trip to Manchester on his journey. He took a famous picture with Sergio Kun Aguero, and at the time,
Of all people, I ain't surprised this dude taking that picture. Messi best friend, of course. He's a goon, bro. He's a goon.
Prime Minister David Cameron. I'm telling you, that picture is up there in the random picture folklore alongside Trey Songz and Phil Mitchell. Like,
He's a fucking goon, bro. I
But
won't
in
surprise.
2017, things were going backwards. In July of that year, Chinese state-controlled media aired a 25-minute feature criticizing the debt-fueled purchases of European football clubs by some of the famous Chinese companies and Chinese entrepreneurs. They used Sunning's Inter Milan purchase as a highlight of their example. The famous club has lost money for 5 straight years and has totaled losses of 275 million euros, the narrator said. What is the purpose of acquisitions like these? Can you imagine the British government airing a show on the BBC saying, Man United have been losing money and underperforming for several years. So Jim Ratcliffe, why did you buy the club? Oh, and Jim, I see the vision, bro. Carry on doing what you're doing. Then, 1 month later, in August of that year, China's state
Oh yeah. Is that Bruno staying? Is that what he tried to say? Cause I heard he's going to Ahala. Bro, where do they get all this oil money? They just be buying everybody over there.
Council issued guidelines
It is
categorizing
crazy the
overseas
amount of
investments
money they
in real
have.
estate and football clubs as restricted. Banks were reportedly stopped from providing
It's literally
credit
like,
for some of
fuck
these
you,
individuals and companies investing overseas in 2017 too. This was a dramatic shift from just 2 years ago when cheap credit was given to anyone who wanted it. And then the big blow was the salary cap. The Chinese FA introduced a steep 100% luxury tax on foreign transfers over a certain value. If a club made a transfer for a player for more than 45 million Chinese yuan, which was around $6 or $7 million at the time, they had to pay a 100% tax to a youth development fund. So if a player was worth £10 million and a Chinese club were interested in buying that player, they would have to pay another £10 million to fund youth football development back home in China.
They would never
effectively
do
making
it.
that player £20 million. This
Dude, they would
doubled
never
the
do that.
cost of big
That's
transfers,
gonna make
and as
everybody
you can
lose so
imagine,
much money. Why
they
would
stopped
anybody do
immediately.
that?
The aftermath. It was catastrophic, my word. If you made it this far, then thank you.
Of course, dude. It's like, if I only have $10 to invest, but somehow you're trying to make me pay another $10 to you just because I'm trying to invest to bring something into your country so that it will develop by having the people watching these people. So somehow I'm being punished to bring in asset into your...
China is a
Word.
cautionary tale, thinking that football is something that can be bought and can change the fortunes of your state. The crazy thing is, history is repeating itself right now in the Middle East, and I'm here to tell you all about it. I am building a series on Saudi Arabia's impact on global sport. It's episodic, and it's 1 episode per sport. Football, boxing, golf, Formula One, esports, and anything else that Saudi Arabia has dabbled in. I'm going to release it in a few months' time. So
They really try to be the entertainment at the center of the earth.
if you want early
Well-
access, click the link in the description and enter your email address in the box. I'm excited. There's so much in there. It's some of the best content I've ever created. We're going to get back to the aftermath of the Chinese U-turn in just a second. Before that, I hope Saudi delegates watched the Chinese implosion, because I see 2 main lessons here. You can't force success in football. Building a competitive football ecosystem requires patient development of players, coaches, broadcast relationships,
Yeah. Look at Inter Miami. They got 4 dudes that play over 20 years together. And a fucking coach that play along with them. Yet they got blew out. Like what they got blew out 4-1 before they go back and beat this team. It was during, dude. It's the same thing that happened before at Barca, and that's why they break them off. They were always good when no one cares. But I'm talking about like semi. You know what I mean? Quarters final, semifinals, D finals. That's when the brakes fell off because they missed like 1 or 2 pieces. So, and everyone was costing too much money, so they decided like, fuck this, break it.
and general fan culture.
And they
Despite
break it off
investing
bad,
billions, China
starting with
did not
Messi.
improve its national team, and its domestic league didn't get any better either, despite having loads of great players. In addition, a big reason President Xi made this leap into football was for power and prestige on a global scale. A rebranding exercise, if you will. That, as I mentioned, is eerily similar to what's happening in Saudi Arabia. The U-turn by President Xi and the Chinese state was because a lot of these acquisitions were fueled by debt. A lot of these companies were using leverage to buy these assets, and they were levered up to the gills. Admittedly, there's not that much leverage happening in Saudi. These guys are walking cash pits, but the political and economic winds change all the time. And as you will see from my Saudi series, the macroeconomic conditions in Saudi Arabia aren't that rosy either. What's in favor today might not be in favor tomorrow. And when football is in the mix of those things, too many people are affected. There's no better example of that than Inter Milan. Towards the end of the 2010s, many of the overseas investments...
I mean, that's true, because if you treat it like a hype, what happened, it will be like Pokemon card price right now. Yeah, don't gotta say no more. I know it's never into it, but I saw some stuff across of it, and I already knew. It was the same thing as the hype with shoes. So, yeah. And now the price of shoes, like, yo, go get what you want. And the same thing, if you build too much hype around soccer, but there's no, like, good foundation built upon it. Like, the superstar gonna come, but then they're gonna get old. So then who's gonna replace them? And you can get quick replacement with money, but then chemistry needs to be built. Just like how, dude, the truth is, just like, doesn't matter how much money Real Madrid have. Every time they face Barca, it's always a fucking tingling one for them for some reason, even though they have all the money and spend all this money on the best player. Somehow they cannot beat the fucking academy development players from the other team. So maybe the answer is, maybe chemistry is more valuable than money.
But then Chinese companies and individuals were starting to be undone. By 2019, the number of Chinese-owned clubs had dwindled to 10. Remember, it was above 20 in 2017. Those that remained often faced financial strain, and they were probably still there because they just couldn't get out. Inter Milan were arguably the jewel of the Chinese investment spree. They won the Scudetto around this time too, and were owned by Suning Holdings. They were fronted by a chap called Steven Zhang. But Suning Holdings is a name I've mentioned a few times in this story so far. Remember, they were the ones that were getting slagged off in the Chinese press not too long before. Due to the reversal in capital controls by President Xi, Steven Zhang couldn't capitalize the club. He needed a loan to secure Inter Milan's financial future. He was searching for funding, and a private equity company from America called Oaktree sensed an opportunity. They said, Steven, we're going to lend you the money, but there's going to be 3 conditions. 1, we're going to take 31% of the club. 2, the interest rate is going to be high, 12%. 3, if you don't pay us back by May of 2024, you got 3 years, we're going to take control of the club. Steven was desperate at the time, but he said, sure, I'll take the money and I'll sign these conditions. I'll be fine. The Super League is coming. Oh my word. That deal fell apart. Steven Zhang couldn't pay, and Oaktree took control of Inter Milan. Yes, at the time of recording this video.
He took the bait. He thought he brought the bacon home, and it was just fucking geese fat or some shit, bro. It wasn't bacon. It was another kind of meat. It was horse meat.
Steven Zhang lost his assets. It's insane, and what's crazier is something very similar happened across the road at AC Milan with Redbird Capital just a year before that too. Back home, President Xi's U-turn did not help the domestic league either. The most shocking case was Jiangsu FC, owned by Suning Holdings. Again, that Suning name just keeps coming up. In the 2010s, the winners of the Chinese Super League looked like this. In November of 2020...
What? Evergrey? Is that the shit that... Is that the housing place that bankrupt shit ton of people money?
Jiangsu FC won the championship, beating the mighty Guangzhou Evergrande and winning their first ever title. 3 months later, in February 2021, the club ceased operations. Can you believe that? The club just won the league and then folded 3 months later because the Suning Group decided to stop all non-core business activities.
Yo, that sounds so much like Chinese people, bro. When shit go bad, they will never tell their worker. You're just gonna show up in work and it's all empty and cleared out because the dude The dude is already fucking dip. He's like, yo, I'm out first. Fuck this people. I don't give a fuck about those people. Me first. But hey, that's their culture. But I do familiar with that one.
Jiangsu's players were left stranded. The city lost its club overnight. It underlined a dramatic U-turn. Not even winning the league could save the club when the owners can't fund the organization. The mighty Guangzhou Evergrande of the 2010s had a rough spot too. Their parent company, the Evergrande Group, went through a massive debt crisis in the late 2010s, and it severely impacted the football team. Expensive players were released, salaries were slashed, and in 2022 they got relegated to the second division of Chinese football.
That's the second tier?
These guys relegated. Honestly, researching some of this,
that's a second tier.
was harrowing to read. The impact of the U-turn, insane. Of course, the ultimate goal of all of this was to make China's national team a success. In the midst of all of this, I didn't mention, they appointed some pretty successful managers, Marcelo Lippi and Fabio Cannavaro, to try and rebuild the national pride of China. The 2018 World Cup, China failed to qualify. The 2022 World Cup, China failed to qualify. And I'm recording this video in early May 2025. China's FIFA rankings right now, 94th. I'm telling you, there are eerie similarities.
They expanding World Cup to 54 country and you ranking 94th. That is a tough ride. But listen, I still think you have better chances than Vietnam, because I think we're undefeated in World Cup, as in never getting in and never even get beat. So, hey yo, there's your chance.
So what's happening in
Just
China?
think about that.
What's happening in Saudi Arabia? I'm making a series on it, so put your name on the waitlist to get early access to that when I release it in a few months' time. But let this be a lesson to you all. Pumping millions, or even billions in this case, into a sports project is not a guaranteed recipe for success. Also, building a footballing nation to be successful is not an easy task. It takes generations. It truly is a long play.
Well, guys, thank you for watching. There it is. There's the answer. It takes time to build foundation, and you can't buy a team into success unless it is Messi and unless FIFA got his back. Is that what they still say? I can't believe it. Yo, until next time, I'm out.